Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we know from this tweet from Play Hearthstone that a balance patch will be arriving on Thursday. There'll be a teaser on Wednesday. Of course, we'll have videos for both of those things, but today I wanted to go over my predictions for what'll get nerfed, maybe, of course they're gonna buff stuff, but yeah, we're gonna talk about that and why I'm really, again, quite worried, because this patch could go two ways, and I feel like one's the right way, and one is like, oh no, what are we doing? We'll talk about that in a second. And as always, if you enjoy the content on the channel, feel like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below, give the video a like, it helps out a lot, as we're on the road to 90,000 subscribers. So you take a look at the Hearthstone meta at Legend, it's a lot of old stuff. The one thing from the Great Dark Beyond is the starship mechanics haven't really taken off outside of Death Knight, and well, Draenei are just horrendously bad, and the meta is dominated by, you know, Wave of Nostalgia, by Elemental Mage, by the Double Frost CK, by Big Spell Mage, the same old stuff at High Legend. It's a lot of Cycle Rogue, Sonya Rogues. It's just, that's the thing, right? Odin Warrior, very few new archetypes have really been able to shine, and there's two directions the team can take. And I'm really concerned about this, because you have the one direction where I tweeted out, where I think you're delusional if we don't do mass nerfs, that you're going to be able to catch up to tsunamis and OTKs on turn 7 and giant board states. We need mass nerfs. So there's basically that one way they can go. Just nerf all the top decks, right? Nerf all this stuff, and then do some little buffs to help bump up some starship decks, some Draenei stuff. But overall, the best thing you can do is dial back the power level. But that's not usually the thing lately. Lately, it's been a lot more about buffing, and their idea could be, well, this stuff's doing really well. That's fine. Let's just buff the living crap out of the starship pieces, make them all cheaper, stronger, more powerful, make the starship like 3 mana, 2 mana to launch, right? They could go that route, and I'm worried that's what they're gonna do. I have a little bit of hope because the last balance patch we got did see some significant rollbacks, right? We had Yogg, Marin, Dorian, a lot of cards get scaled back, and I feel like we need a patch like this again and bigger, right? Like, I don't know which way I'm gonna go. I feel like it's not gonna happen, but at the end of the day, I can't see how they can see what's going on in the game and think it'll be fine. Anyways, let's go into my predictions, because there's one card I feel like 100% will get nerfed, and it's not even a power outlier, and that's Quasar. I think Quasar is like 100% gonna get nerfed. It's a standout, first off, that just doesn't make sense in the design scheme of this expansion, and the play pattern it creates is just super toxic, really frustrating. You basically want to uninstall, and it's problematic in both standard and wild. I expect them to gut this card. It goes to like 8, 9 mana, or discounts by 2, something like that. Like, this card's gonna die. This was a mistake. I think they see that, and it's the one card I am confident that they'll nerf. The other ones, I feel like they have to take a look at Big Spell Mage. It's been so good for so long, and while the standout's not even in the Mage set, it's Con Man, right? This card, this buff has been a disaster, and it props up both Mage and Paladin being able to replay the last card you play from a non-rogue class. I imagine it goes back to where it started, where it's from another class. So you can't just replay your best card. You can make this 5 mana. I guess you could do something like that, but overall, I feel like the effect is too strong. Even at 5, it's too strong. I feel like they just revert it. Just revert the card. It was a mistake. It happens. But I think this is another very likely card to get nerfed. The other card that I think is very likely to get nerfed, Elemental Mage, is just too good, right? They already nerfed Lamplighter. I don't see that happening again. I guess you could bump Lamplighter to like 5 or I guess like 6 mana, so you can't play 2 in 1 turn. Like, give it more stats, and that it's more in line with Scar. Remember, Scar's the legendary. It hits everything, but still, it's kind of insane when this is a neutral that can do that, but I don't think that's what they'll hit. I think they'll hit Blazing Accretion. This card is absurd. 3 mana, 3/1, draw 3 cards. Pretty much the best performing card of the deck, too. I could see going down to draw 2 cards or be 4 mana, like slow it down a little bit, especially Elemental Mage barely has any 3s, so that would really hit that curve really hard. And yeah, although I don't know if they want to nerf the new cards so much, but I guess the last thing I'll mention for new cards is only other one that I could see getting nerfed, and it's like in so many decks, and it really enables a ton of like, I feel like OTK strategies, is Ethereal Oracle. This card's absurd. Whether it gets nerfed this patch or another one, I will be shocked if this card remains the same way. 3 mana, 2/3 spell damage +1, spell burst, draw 2 spells. I could see going down to 1 spell or 4 mana, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen this patch, but it's certainly a card to keep an eye out for. So that's kind of like the bare minimum I feel like they would nerf. Then it's like, okay, what do we do? Do we do the mass nerf thing? Because if they do the mass nerf thing, I'll just go over what I think they would need to do to actually make a difference, because there is so much stuff. So Death Knight's really strong, and if you nerf like the combo stuff we're going to be talking about, I think you have to hit them. Plus they have a card that started out at 1 that's absurd. I think Thread should be at least 3. Like, this card just negates so many board states that I feel like you'd have to nerf this. Like, if you want boards to matter more, Threads at 2 negate so much stuff that you would have to do that. Also, Reska, right? Punishing those starships, they really want them to take off. This is a card that just steals them, and I feel like it's 0 mana consistently on turns like 6, 7, sometimes 5. You could bump this to 25, 30 mana, and it would still be a really good card. I would take a look at that. You could also look at the Breach card. This card's also insane, giving +10 health, 10/10 and taunts. But again, that's 3 cards for 1 class. Like, that's not going to happen. Demon Hunter, actually not much of an outlier in any way. Druid, one of the best decks in the entire format, is Spell Damage Druid. If you hit Ethereal Oracle, then you're hitting that deck. But I would think a better target, or you could look at Funnel Cakes as a card, as a target for that deck, plus Zarimi Priest, which is really good still, or Magical Dollhouse, and make this more expensive. You see why I'm like, I don't think they're going to do nerfs? There's so many cards, but I'm going to go through the list of what I would think would need to happen to dial everything back. Hunter, I feel like Mystery Egg would have to go back to 5. Like, this isn't insane right now, but if you nerf other stuff, this mana cheat and like infinite plushes and Muklas gets to be quite insane. We talked about Mage with Elemental Mage, and Big Spell Mage. Paladin, you're looking at Pipsy in particular, of just being this insane scam card. Even if you nerf Con Man, arguably way too good. This deck has a giant scam and an OTK, so like, it's one of those things that just has so much going on. With Rogue, you know I'm gonna mention Sonya, because basically Sonya enables you to have 1,000,000 win conditions. You can get like more Insidiouses, you can get stuff with Grifta. It just gets to be insane, and this card I still feel like is a super huge problem. And at High Legend, the best deck is the Everything Must Go Cycle Rogue, so you might want to nerf this so Robocaller doesn't pull it, or nerf Robocaller. Again, we're still going to go through what I feel like would have to change. With Shaman, it's Wave of Nostalgia Shaman, so the tokens are a little too efficient. Maybe you'd have to hit one of these token cards like Pop-Up Book. Maybe you make Wave of Nostalgia itself a little bit more expensive. Those are the things you're looking at for the class. I don't think you're nerfing Asteroids because they're not that great right now. Warlock, not really a standout in any way, so I wouldn't nerf anything in Warlock. And Warrior, you got Odin Warrior, which is super good and shares a very similar card with Druid. You could be looking at Sleep Under the Stars. It draws a bunch of cards, gives you armor. It's outright nuts and standard wild. Another card you could look at, of course, there's that broken card that's already been nerfed 4 times, with the Virus module in particular as a standout. We saw in the early access brawl that maybe Reborn should just be taken off of this, so it's not always coming back. So Ziliax is another card you could absolutely look at. And let's say they do all the nerfs that we're suggesting. Reno becomes pretty good again, right? And what does Reno do? It negates all the Starship decks. So I feel like you'd have to also preemptively nerf Reno again so that it just doesn't poof the board. Maybe it just destroys all enemy minions instead, right? Doesn't just remove everything. You could do that, and honestly, they probably should. Even though I kind of like the card, it's not meta dominant right now. It just goes against the spirit of fighting for board, launching starships, and if they were to dial back like literally everything, yeah, Reno decks would be pretty good again, and then you can't launch starships. it'll feel terrible because you're facing Reno. So yeah, they'd have to do that too. And it's just like, are they going to be doing this? Like, let's be realistic. There would need to be so many cards dialed back. You could argue for even more than this. I don't see it happening. I think they'll go with the first suggestions I made and maybe one or maybe two more. And then we're looking at buffs, and it's going to be the newer cards. And I don't even know where to start because there's so many cards that you could buff. Death Knight, I feel like you actually don't buff anything. Demon Hunter, you have the whole crewmate thing. It's horrible. Like, it's legitimately horrible. You could do all the nerfs I mentioned, by the way. It would still suck. Like, this is a mechanic that I don't know how you make this good, but maybe you could make these 3 mana so they would feel better to play from in hand. You could do that. The Starship stuff actually working in Demon Hunter and aggro. I don't actually think you buff any of that, but yeah, you could literally buff every crewmate card in the game. It'd be fine. I think at the bare minimum, Deirdre should at least draw 2 cards, whether it's like Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Should draw 2 because drawing one of these just, it's so bad. So yeah, you could buff all of that. For Druid, maybe you could give this like 4 health. You could buff some of the arcane stuff going on, but it's really scary because it's really close to being really good. I would say Ulu you could buff to be when it's right in your hand, it immediately gains those effects. So you don't have to wait a turn for it to gain the 2 choose 1 effects. That's something you could do. Hunter's doing pretty well. I don't actually think you would want to buff anything. The Starship stuff, maybe. But no, it's same play. I actually don't think you buff Hunter at all. Hunter's actually got a pretty good set here. Mage, buff the Draenei stuff, right? Draenei Mage is not working, whether it's Exarch Kataru, which I think is a good standalone card. Ingenious, but then you're buffing Mana Cheat, so I don't know about that. Or maybe you make Arcwing Pilot 6 mana. I think that would be reasonable. So you could look at buffing some of those Draenei. Paladin, the Librams suck. The Librams suck. Again, if I did all those nerfs I said, it would still be pretty bad. You gotta buff at least this weapon. Like, I would say make it a 2-2. They might make it a 3-2. That's more likely, but I get scared that it's such an efficient weapon then, but at least take a durability off so you get that mana cheat a little bit faster. I actually wouldn't buff the Librams themselves because once they get going, they're nuts. And I could see Interstellar Wayfarer going to 3 mana or make it even a 2 mana card. I don't know. I don't like making it -2 mana on the Librams because that accelerates things way too fast, but it's really crappy at 4 mana. So I would like probably buff the 2 mana cheat enablers, ironically, and the rest I think are fine. Priest, you could buff like, I don't know. What are you even doing with Priest? This card's insane. This card's actually pretty good. You could buff Ascara, give it better stats, make it cheaper maybe. Toka, you can make that 3 mana. But like, again, what are you doing, right? Like, the main problem with Draenei, which I haven't made a video on yet, which I will, is there's just not enough of them. They all require other Draenei to work, right? They buff your other Draenei's and all of that. There's just not enough of them. That's the main problem right now. But yeah, that's probably a video for another day. Rogue, Starship Rogue. We saw in the video, they're all doing really bad. You make Starship Schematic discount the Starship piece you're getting. You could make it a Battle Cry, get a random Starship piece. That way Shadow Step's not as amazing. So it's not like Discover, but you know, Shadow Step tax exists. Maybe they make it 1 mana, I don't know. Barrel Roll, I think is fine. Tolgath could go to 3 mana. I think you would make the legendary piece 4. Like, a stat increase doesn't really help. I think you make it a 4 mana 4/3, and you're probably okay with that. So that's some buffs they could do. Shaman is doing great. I don't think you're buffing Shaman like at all. Even Nebula is like a good card. Warlock, the demon stuff sucks. Like, I don't know, Abduction Ray, make the demons -3. Gain mana off of it. I don't know. Heart of the Legion, like, it's already premium stats. I don't even know what you do with that, right? Like, I don't know what you do with these cards. You just gotta slow the other stuff down, but we'll see. I guess this could get like a stat increase, maybe 4 health or something. And Black Hole, I feel like could be 7 mana. I feel like that card could be 7 mana for sure. And then you're looking at Warrior. Again, like, all these cards are like premium statted and effects, but you imagine they'll buff for Draenei, make like, I don't know, do you make this an 8/2? Do you make Exarch Akama 4 mana? There's some options there, right? You could do that Red Planet could be like 8 mana and still suck. Spore Empress could be 5 mana and it would still be better, right? Like, I don't even know what you're doing. And then neutrals, like, they typically don't go too crazy buffing neutrals. I guess the main standout is this Starship piece just sucks. You don't want to play any Starship deck. Maybe make it cheaper. Like, just make it 2 mana and take an attack or a health off or something, right? Like, you could do that because it's like the one piece you like never want to play. And everything else, like, I don't know what you're real. I guess, again, you could look at Drenais, they could buff. They could buff Ace Wayfinder, they could buff Lunar Trailblazer. It's all the stuff you're looking at are Drenais. Do they make Velen 6 mana? That's the thing, like, there's so many cards that they could potentially buff that it's a lot easier to just buff cards, not give dust refunds, not destroy decks and all of that. There are just so many. And I know I just listed like a million cards. I think we're getting a giant patch and I am quite concerned it's going to be just a million buffs and a couple minor nerfs. And then who knows what happens. Find out on Wednesday, I guess, with the teaser. But overall, this is, in my opinion, a very, very important patch that will really indicate their direction with the game going forward. We either get mass nerfs, which means we're going to start scaling back the power level. We like what we kind of launched with the Great Dark Beyond, and we want to bring everything back to that. Or we like the power level of the game as it is, and we want the Great Dark Beyond to get to that point. They launched it like it was right now, I would think for a reason, so fingers crossed. We're going to get a bunch of nerfs, and, you know, that happens, but again, we'll see. Let me know in the comments down below what you would like to see, what you think will happen, and I guess on Wednesday, we'll find out, and we can rant or be happy or whatever when the time comes. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.